glad to see you today. This is my dog, Pippi. And I have Pippi with me here today because today we are going to be talking about texture for our art lesson. Texture is the way something feels when you touch it. Now, if I touch Pippi's fur, Pippi feels furry. Right, Pippi? You're furry. So the texture of Pippi's hair is furry, or you could say soft. There are more textures besides furry and soft, though. If I touch a pine cone feels spiky or prickly. The texture of a pine cone is spiky or prickly. If I touch sandpaper and I rub my hands across it, it feels scratchy or rough. The texture of the sandpaper is scratchy or rough. Now today, before I show you our art activity, I'm going to read you a book about a dog kind of like Pippi. But this dog's name is Ralph. And this book is not only about a dog, but it's about texture. In this book, the illustrations have a lot of beautiful textures. It's one of my favorite books to read when I talk about texture. If you look at the front cover of this book, Ralph, you can see that Ralph has a bumpy looking body. He has got a woven collar, a zipper mouth. That would be bumpy if we touched it for sure. And there are many more textures in this book. So I'm going to read you the book Ralph, and then we're going to talk about what we're going to do today. Ralph by Lois Ehlert. You might remember Lois Ehlert because we learned about her for another lesson. She's the author and illustrator of books, and she wrote an illustrated book, Leaf Man, Kindergartners, that we studied about at the beginning of the school year. Ralph. Check out that texture on that page. Look at all that stuff. It's a really bumpy and rough looking tree, huh? I bet you won't believe me, but our dog can talk. I found out when we first brought him home and I asked, "What's your name?" Ralph, 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 Ralph. We built a house for him and a really high fence all around our backyard. Hey, Ralph, where are you? Roof, 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 roof. He's on the roof. And look at that texture on the roof right there. It looks very bumpy in the picture. Ralph likes to chase the backyard birds. I always tell him no, but he never listens. Ralph, what's on that tree? That picture right there. Bark, 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 bark. I think Ralph needs a long walk in the woods. How's the path feel on your paws, Ralph? Roof, 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 roof. So we race back home on the soft grass. As I latch the fence gate, we hear a howl. What's that, Ralph? Wolf, 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 wolf. Look at that. It is a wolf, isn't it? Don't be scared, Ralph. He can't get in. But want to come into the house with me? Yep, 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 yep. Oh, Ralph, isn't it great to have a friend? Good night, sleepyhead. Talk to you tomorrow. The end. Now, if we go back into this book, we can take a look at some of that texture that we saw. Right here on the roof of Ralph's doghouse, it looks like the roof is bumpy. But guess what? When I touch this picture, it is not bumpy at all. The illustrator made it look like it's bumpy on this page. That's a pretty cool art trick, huh? It looks bumpy, but it doesn't feel bumpy. And on this page, we have the zipper mouth. And it looks like if I touch that, it would feel like a bumpy zipper. But it doesn't. The illustrator of the book, Lois Ehlert, played a trick on me. It feels perfectly smooth, but it looks like it feels bumpy. Now this is the bark of a tree. It looks like if I touch that, it's going to feel rough like a tree. But it doesn't. Lois Ehlert played a trick on me. It's not rough or bumpy at all. So what we're going to do today for our art time is we're going to learn how to make an art trick. We are going to learn how to make a plain piece of paper that's perfectly smooth look like it has texture or feels rough or bumpy. So I'm going to teach you how to do something called a texture rubbing. I have gathered some of my art supplies that I need for my frottage. I have a piece of paper, just plain white paper, and I actually have several sheets of it because I might want to do several different texture rubbings. I have some peeled crayons. There's no paper on these crayons, as you can see. I'm going to be rubbing them while pinching them on their side. They are not walking crayons or drawing crayons. They're laying down on the paper, and I'm going to be pinching and holding and rubbing like this to make my texture rubbings, and you'll see how that works in just a second. So you will need paper, you will need the peeled crayons. Additionally, what you're going to have to do is go around your house and look for some objects that have some cool texture. I found some things in my house. You may or may not have these same things, you probably don't, but you can find things in your house that have texture as well. This is a metal piece of art that has a lot of texture on it. It's really rough and bumpy when I touch it, so we'll do a texture rubbing of this. I found a wooden box with a lot of carved texture in it. I'm going to try to do a rubbing of this box. I found a metal basket. It's kind of hard to see it. Maybe if I pick this up, you can see it better. Uh-oh. It's just like a metal basket made of wires, metal here. I'm going to try to do a rubbing of this. I've got a button with a lot of texture on it. See how that goes. I found a letter opener, Auburn University letter opener. It's got this textured top right there. Got a picture frame with a lot of design around the edges. A piece of sandpaper, and this is iffy. I don't know if this is going to work, but this is a chain. These are inside objects that I found in my house, but you might be able to find some cool things outside too. Alright, so I'm going to start with the angel, the metal angel. I'm going to lay her down under my paper, put the paper on top of the angel, and I'm going to take my crayon, lay it down on top of the paper, pinch it like this, and rub across the paper. And what's going to happen is all those little bumpy ridges that are high are going to show up on the crayon rubbing, and everything that's low on the metal plate is going to be white. You can see I got to rub really hard to get the edges of her and her wings Got a pretty cool rubbing of this metal angel. You can kind of see it right there. Okay. Next, I'm going to get another piece of paper. And I think I'm going to try my wooden box here. I've got my paper. I'm going to put it on top of the box. I'm going to try to hold the paper nice and flat. And I'm going to take my crayon and rub it across the top of the paper, which is on top of the box. I'm going to get a really cool image of the texture that's on the box. One of the tricky things about this is you have to hold the paper really still when you do this, or it will make the image a little bit messed up. So check that out. I've got texture rubbing of this wooden box. Alright, next I'm going to use the same piece of paper and I'm going to do a rubbing of this Auburn University letter opener. So the top right there has got a really good design on it. So I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to lay it on top of the part that I want to rub, and I'm rubbing the crayon on top here. Kind of hard to hold it still, that's the tricky part. If you practice, you'll get really good at it, I promise. And I got a picture of what was on this letter opener. I think I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to do a different color though. This is my button with the print on it. I can feel it's rough and bumpy, so that'll work good. I'll rub my crayon over that. And this one, you know what? I actually don't like this color. Let me try black. Let's see if black will show up better. Well, it's working, but I don't think it's that pretty. This one's not my favorite one, but it still worked. Alright, next, I'm going to try this basket. A lot of this is just an experiment. Some of the things you use might work and some of them might not, but it's still fun to try. Why not, huh? Oh yeah. I'm holding my paper really still and I'm rubbing it across the side of this basket. And it's going to show a picture of the design on it. That worked pretty good, huh? That's kind of fun. And that is my texture rubbing of this basket. This I'm not sure it's going to work. I have a chain here. A yellow chain. I'm going to lay it down. This might not work. I don't know. Art's an experiment. And it's okay to mess up when you're making art. Just try and see what happens. You might rub some things with your crayon for your art activity that do work and some things that don't work. Now, this one isn't my favorite, but I still tried. So that's not a good one. Next, sandpaper. Now, sandpaper is cool to do texture rubbings with. It's definitely rough and bumpy. So I'm going to lay my paper on top of it and rub it across it. Oh yeah, that's a good one. That is a good one. Very nice, very nice. Good texture on this. Good, good, good. And my picture frame. I'm going to try that one. I hope you enjoyed our lesson on texture and our story, Ralph. I'd love for you to send me some pictures of the art that you make this week. You can send me some pictures of your texture rubbings, or you can send me pictures of art that you make using texture. Please send them to me on Dojo. It brightens my day when I see the art that you make. It makes me happy to know that you're making art even though we're not together. And I'll have another lesson for you next week. I hope you have a good week and see you soon. Bye-bye. Bye, Pippi.